All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.
Call the meeting of the Greenfield Town Council to order December 5th, 2017. This is a special meeting. It's 6:23. We are at the Planning Office, 114 Main Street. This meeting is being recorded and videotaped. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Chris Collins, GCTV, we're recording. Anybody else recording? Seeing no one. Clerk will again call the roll.
Councilor Sun.
Here.
Councilor Lobeck.
Here.
President Alice.
Present.
Councilor Pyfrom.
Here.
Councilor Weinstein. Councilor Burge.
Here.
Councilor Childs.
Yep.
Councilor Leonovich.
Here.
Councilor Mass.
Here.
Councilor Reno is absent. Councilor Ricketts.
Here.
Councilor Maloney.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to suspend the rules of procedure, Rule of Procedure 8, Order of Disposition of Business?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Okay. All right, we will move into motions, orders, and resolutions. This, the first, so there's four vetoes, four things that the mayor vetoed. And these motions, just so that everyone's on the same page, I'm going to give a little bit of background and try to clarify the timeline and everything that's happened so that we know where we're going. We had a meeting, and please stop me if I'm saying something that is incorrect.
I will.
We met on the 15th for a council meeting, for our regular council meeting, at which point we took 3 votes. One was to set a tax classification, one was to set a residential factor, and one was to set a small business, a residential exemption and a small business exemption. Those were the 3 votes that we took. The meeting was posted for Wednesday, November 16th. Wednesday was November 15th. So I just want to be clear that that was how it was posted. The votes we took were, and they weren't all unanimous. I'm just going to give you the outcome of the votes, not what the tallies were on those votes. The vote was an affirmative vote to split the tax at a 1.5 factor. The vote on the residential exemption was no residential exemption. The vote for the small business exemption was a small business exemption. Those were the votes. That's how they turned out. Those 3 votes were even. The small business exemption was incorrect in its wording and what we voted, because there was supposed to be a percentage voted. So that vote was technically incorrect. The residential factor was voted correctly. The split also voted correctly from a technical standpoint. within the next couple of days, it was brought to light that the date on the posting had a discrepancy. It was then brought to my attention that that made the votes null and void, which was why the motions were placed then on the the November 29th meeting. So that's why they were on the 29th meeting, because we were under the impression that they were null and void. On November 28th, we received a legal opinion that said the vote and the meeting was not an illegal vote or an illegal meeting, that Attorney Quinn had done some research and found a similar scenario where his opinion was that those votes could stand. So on the 21st, we'll go back to the 21st, the mayor vetoed all three. When the mayor vetoes a vote, we have to bring it back to the council, register the veto with the reasoning on the record, and no sooner than 10 days and no later than 30, deal with the veto of those votes. So that's how the veto happened and what the process is to deal with that. Now, that all happened between the time that we had the vote and the November 29th meeting. So now we'll go to the November 29th meeting where we had a vote, where we took 3 votes. Fiscal year 2018 tax classification factor, which we voted an affirmative vote of a factor of 1.0808. We tabled the residential exemption. We voted affirmatively for no small business exemption, and that was on the 29th. Now we're here on December 5th, and to try to clear this all up, I'm going to have Attorney Quinn talk about legally, if you could go through legally all of those steps and where we are at this point as we spoke on the phone. I don't know if you want me to ask you the questions I asked you, or if you just want to give a summary.
Sure.
However we can, I just want everyone to understand the same conversation that we had. And apparently there was a conference call about all of this that I wasn't invited to, so I'm not sure what took place on that conference call. So I'm just hoping that you could just give us what we spoke about today.
Sure.
And any other information that we need to know. So, does everyone understand what I said? Maybe not understand it completely, but is that the chronology as everyone remembers it? I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page so that we can get to the legal aspects of it. So, Attorney Quinn.
Sure. Let me just give a brief summary, and then anybody can ask questions. But that's a fairly decent summary of the sort of complicated fact pattern leading to where we are today. Basically, today, this meeting, which is a valid meeting, special meeting, is to consider the vetoes, consider the mayor's veto. But that concerns the veto of the measures that were taken at the November 15th meeting. Because it's too soon to, I'm not sure what's happened since November 29th, but this meeting, in any event, couldn't consider any measures or vetoes of potential theoretical vetoes of measures from the November 29th meeting. So as long as, we're all set on that, this is to consider the November 15th measures, or, so basically, you took 2 votes. You took a vote in November 15th, and then because of a concern regarding the posting, you took another vote, and that also had, before that vote, there was a very large, public meeting, public hearing. The vote took place. I reviewed the charter. There's nothing in the charter that I could see that prohibited the council from taking that step of having the November 29th meeting. I think it was a valid step to take. I think it made sense based on the question about the posting. And there's nothing in the charter that prohibited that meeting to take place. So I think that there were the votes that took place on November 29th were valid votes and are subject to the whole legislative approval process under Section 3-7 going forward. But in the meantime, you have this sort of dangling issue involving the vetoes regarding the November 15th meeting that you have to take care of today. And you have to really review it in the context of what you decided on November 29th. And I think it's valid to address those vetoes as a council, understanding that if you were to override the mayor's veto for November 21st, you would, or the veto that he.
Oh, the veto.
The veto, you would be reinstating, or you'd be voting for the measures that you voted for November 15th, which is, my understanding, may not be, was obviously something different. There was a different outcome on November 29th. So that's basically where we are at this point. I think you can take this vote as a valid vote on, in terms of the veto regarding the November 15th issues. And I think the November 29th measures are still out there, is still going through the legislative process.
Correct.
And I say that because, there's some question about, the measures were discussed November 15th, and what happened in November 29th. There's some confusion there. But as I look at the charter, there's nothing that prohibits it, and the charter is to be construed very generally for purposes of to be in favor of the town and the functions and the various functions the town has to perform, especially the council functions.
Right.
So that's where we are. I don't know if there's any follow-up questions.
Does anyone have any follow-up or questions to clarify? Councilman Maloney?
Well, I guess I'm just a little confused because it seems to me that there's basically two balls in play. And what you're saying is we can take a vote on one of those balls tonight. But I guess I don't understand how both votes could be valid and legal at the same time for one measure. So can you help me understand how, if what happened on the 15th holds, how does what happened on the 29th hold as well? How do we have multiple votes on the same measure, all having equal legality and validity?
Good question.
Well,
Thank you.
again, it's an unusual fact pattern, but I think the council could interpret the November 29th actions as really a change in the decision, an amendment of the prior decision, a change, sort of re-looking at the issues again. I don't know how else you want to look at it. I thought that perhaps, and I may have mentioned this in our conversation, that one thought, typically what you see is perhaps a council voting to rescind a prior measure, then revisiting and doing it over. That wasn't followed here. So I think you're sort of left with what happened. And I think when you look at the charter, I think there was nothing that prevented that new sort of amendment. Essentially what it amounts to was amended tax classification. I think it's still, you have to sort of deal with that. But at the same time, because the prior measures weren't officially rescinded, you have to sort of you have to really address those right now. I think you're trying to make the best of an awkward, kind of complicated fact pattern.
So I think what I would say is that, given that situation, I believe we would have gone through the steps of rescinding the vote. However, when we scheduled the meeting, we thought that they were not legal votes, but they are. And we didn't find that out until the night, at about 5 o'clock the night before our meeting.
Yeah.
So I think in my mind, what I was saying was, okay, well, if they're vetoed, they can stay vetoed, and then that's like us rescinding or reconsidering that vote.
So I guess I understand the notion of that being an amendment, given that the extent of the split was modified as opposed to no split.
Right.
But when you then look at a commercial exemption and go from yes to no, I mean, that's not an amendment, that's an about face, that's a completely different vote. So how does a yes and a no both stand simultaneously? So to me, I feel like we're actually in some murky ground here of now we're almost kind of like cherry picking. Well, this is an amendment, this is not. I still am a little bit confused by this whole thing, and I'm a little unclear of the implications of the vote for tonight if we have two sets of measures that have been voted on that are equally valid, that have differing outcomes. One might be an amendment of, it was a yes and just the extent changed, but some of these, it's a yes and a no. They are completely different votes, so how do both stand?
Councilor Mass, and then Councilor Ricketts.
Perhaps I can explain my point of view of what I understand, and municipal council can correct me if I'm wrong, and council president can correct me if I'm wrong. What I understand is, first of all, the vote on the small business exemption was never a valid vote because we didn't adopt a percentage. So that particular vote was not valid. As to the 1.5 split, once the mayor vetoed that on November 21st, that vote was that measure was dead unless the council overrode that veto. As I understand it, the council can't act within 10 days, cannot act after 30 days, but is not required to act at all. If the council did nothing, the mayor's veto would stand. And therefore, for all intents and purposes, unless we vote to override his veto of 1.5 tonight, that vote is a dead vote. And in fact, I fully anticipate that we will, because no one proposed that on the 29th. I also understand that the charter doesn't allow us to take up the same measure within 10 days, but it allows us to take up different measures. And the measures that we took up were in fact different measures, because we took up the original votes that were sent by the mayor's office to us, which we then amended, with the exception of the residential exemption. So as I understand it tonight, if we vote to sustain the mayor's veto on the 1.5, that measure is dead and the 1.0808 stands until the mayor takes some action. If we vote to override the mayor's exemption on the residential, veto on the residential exemption, that is override and we have no residential exemption. If we don't vote to override that, then we have not made a decision about a residential exemption, and therefore we have to, well, we can discuss what we'd have to do then. But we didn't vote that on the 29th. And then on the small business exemption, the only vote that we took that was valid was the no vote on the 29th. That's what I understand, if that's correct. I don't,
About that?
That's essentially, no, that's essentially,
I didn't see that we haven't sent the votes to the mayor for the 29th either.
Right, we have not sent them, because, we have not sent the 29 votes, the votes from the 29th to the mayor yet, because there was so much confusion. I wanted legal counsel to tell us what we needed to do so that we didn't continue on a path of, every time, so Deb and I, Clerk Tuttle and I talk on a daily basis about what we need to do and the procedure and where we need to go. Every meeting that was set and everything that we did was set based on the information that we received. So as the information continually changed, it compounded what was going on. So at the point we took the vote of the 29th, what was Friday? What was the date on Friday?
First.
The 1st. So on the 1st, I received a call from the clerk's office about a mysterious fourth vote that we had never seen, that needed to be voted, and that we had to do something with a fourth vote that no one seemed to know exactly what it was. And then there was,
know now?
we do know now, but we did not know then, and I could not get an answer then. And I said, you know what, just hold everything, we're gonna stop everything until we can get it figured out. And then, once we get it figured out, we'll send the votes out, because the veto process starts from the time he receives our votes. So it's not like we took the vote on the 29th and then we didn't send the vote, but he only has 10 days from the 29th. He has 10 days to veto from the point at which he receives our vote. So for anyone who thinks that that might have been a tactic to try to shorten the 10 days, that's not how it works. Did you have something that you wanted to say? I saw you.
No, I just wanted to mention that the 29th second question was tabled and not voted on.
that's
Correct.
correct.
It was tabled because we couldn't take up the same,
Residential exemption.
we could not take up the same motion under the charter, and that was the same motion. So we had to table it because it was not able to be legally taken up at that point. So who had the floor? Were you all set?
I'm all
You were-
set.
Councilor
Yeah,
Ricketson?
I'm all set
Yeah,
by
okay.
what he was, yep.
Did you?
well, the only thing I was gonna add too, which is sort of unrelated to this, but I think that's a fair summary, what Councilor Mass had said, and he's correct about that, the no commercial exemption vote, that wasn't valid. So it not being valid vote, it wasn't in effect. But the only other issue that I think we discussed very briefly is the issue of, the steps that need to be taken, the tax classification votes need to be taken. I think I clarified, and I think it's understood that not all of the votes, the required votes, have to be taken at one meeting, but they should all be taken, before the end of the year, basically, or
Correct.
before,
And so just real quick, if I could interject, the reason that question came up, and that's the reason that I asked council that question, was also on Friday the 1st, there was a question of whether all the votes had to be taken on the same day at the same meeting. Which there was, again, the interaction that I had, I was there was a middle person, and we were going back and forth trying to figure it out. And it was indicated to me that there was a thought that that's how it had to go. So that's why I asked the question. The answer to that question is the votes have to be taken, but they don't have to be taken at the same time, on the same day, at the same meeting. However, the tax rate cannot be set until we've done all of the 3 steps. Does that make sense? And is that correct?
Correct. I mean, I think the steps are, I think just to briefly outline, I'm not sure if the assessors can talk about it, but it's the rate, the factor rate, the commercial, small business, the small commercial exemption issue, the residential exemption, and I think there's an open space vote.
That's the 4th one.
That's the fourth.
That was the elusive 4th
And I'm
one.
not even sure if there is open space.
But we don't have open space in Greenfield. We've never taken that vote, and we don't need to take that vote. Is that correct? Okay.
So, therefore, 3.
Okay. Assessor, is there anything that you wanted to say, clarify?
No, that was perfect.
Setting the bar a little high.
Or very little.
Any further questions on this? Have you gotten a little bit more?
I feel like I have a better general overview, and I would still like for there to be a little bit of like clarification and thoughtfulness as we move through each one of these, just so that I'm sure what we're talking
Okay.
about.
All right.
It's still
I-
a little bit murky.
I agree.
Just a little bit.
So we'll make the first motion, then we can go into discussion. I just wanted to have that discussion so that we could all start from the same point. Councilor Mass.
I move that the fiscal year 2018 tax classification order number fiscal year 2018-41A, that it be ordered that the town council adopt a minimum residential factor of 1.5, resulting in a split tax rate for all other classes of property for the fiscal year 2018, previously voted by the town council on November 15th, 2017, and vetoed by the mayor of November 21st, 2017, is hereby approved.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Councilor Mass.
This is a vote to override the mayor's veto. Councilors should vote no in order to eliminate the 1.5 and let the 1.0808 stand until further action of the mayor. I would urge everyone, whether you're for a split tax rate or against a split tax rate, to vote no on this measure unless you want a split tax rate of 1.5.
So I will say that, to Councilor Maloney's point, to try to fix what the conundrum is that we have, if we vote no, that's one step closer to fixing the conundrum. Does that make sense to everybody? Is there more discussion? So to clarify, a no vote keeps the veto and 1.5 goes away. Does everyone understand?
Yes.
A yes vote keeps the 1.5. All right. So all those in favor? Those opposed?
No.
Abstentions? Motion is defeated unanimously. Councilor Mass.
I move that the fiscal year 2018 tax classification order number fiscal FY 18-41B, that the order the town council votes no residential exemption be adopted for fiscal year 2018, previously voted by the town council on November 15th, 2017, and vetoed by the mayor on November 21st, 2017, is hereby approved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Councilor Mass.
This is the order that was tabled from the 29th meeting. Not this issue was tabled, not this motion. This is a motion to override the mayor's veto of the no residential exemption. This is a little tricky insofar as if a yes vote overrides the exemption, overrides the veto, and leaves no residential exemption in place, which I believe is everyone's position, including the mayor's position. If we vote no, we are in a precarious position in that the rules of procedure of the Greenfield Town Council do not allow us to take up something that was defeated for 9 months, which means it would require a 2/3 vote of the council to suspend our rules of procedure to adopt no residential exemption, which means we would either need to adopt some sort of residential exemption or let the clock run out by DOR. So I urge everyone, regardless of how you feel, to vote yes on this override.
Councilor Maloney.
So just a clarifying question. I understand the implications of the vote now, and I understand how I'm going to vote, but why was this vetoed if we're all on the same page and not wanting it? I don't understand. Like, can you not cherry pick vetoes out of the classification, even the exemptions?
You can, that would be a question for the mayor.
Just to help me understand, Mr. Mayor, could you just give me a sense of why veto this?
Hang on one second, Councilor Rest, did you?
We received the mayor's rationale for his vetoes, which were included, and I believe the mayor was under the impression at the time that they had to be acted on together. He was under that mistaken impression at that time, as some of us were. So I think that's why it was,
Then
I
it had
don't
to be a
believe
bundle.
he's ever changed
Gotcha.
his position that there should be a residential exemption.
It is, just, I wanted to let you go ahead and.
Yeah, and as well, in addition, veto allowed the council full flexibility to have an exemption or to not have an exemption at the next vote.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Further questions? All right, so if you vote yes on this, it will be overriding the veto. We will have a factor, no residential exemption. If you vote no, just don't vote no. If you vote no, we got a lot more work to do. All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Councilor Mass.
I move that the fiscal year 2018 tax classification order number FY 18-41C, that it be ordered that the town council votes a small commercial exemption be adopted for fiscal year 2018, previously voted by the town council on November 15th, 2017, voted by the mayor on November 21st, 2017, is hereby approved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Councilor Mass.
Does not matter how you vote on this. If you vote yes, it doesn't matter because that vote was an illegal vote. If you vote no, it gives clarity and finality to that illegal vote. I would urge everyone to vote no, just so we have fully cleaned up the previous votes.
Councilor Ricketts.
If it's a legal vote, why don't we just not do anything?
I mean, we could not do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't, yeah.
I'm not sure that it was I guess I'm not sure that it was an illegal vote. It was just an incorrect. The outcome of the vote was not even something that the assessor could use to do anything. So I'm not sure it was an illegal vote. I'm sure.
It was just incomplete, the whole thing was.
Incomplete is a.
It's just too messy, it's too.
But I believe it's still, even if it was incomplete, it would still be on the books as a vote, or
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong,
I think to assure clarity,
Yeah.
you know, it's probably better
to
to,
sustain the veto.
yes, that would be my, based on what's been discussed, in my humble opinion.
Sorry, hey, that's how you get the big bucks.
So, any further discussion on this one? So a yes vote means that you would want to override the mayor, and a no vote would sustain the veto. So to sustain the veto means that this goes away, as the first motion we took. Does everyone understand? All those in favor? All opposed?
No.
Any abstentions?
Stay.
Okay, so one abstention.
Point of
So-
information, Mr. President.
Council Ness.
Just because I want real clarity on this issue, as I understand it now, the
Yes.
no residential factor has officially been adopted as the policy of Greenfield for the coming year, and a factor of a split rate of 1.0808, and a no small business exemption are currently in the clerk's office awaiting to be sent to the mayor for executive action.
Correct.
The only question I have left, because we are so close to the end of the year, and I don't know I hate to ask questions that I don't know the answer, but since we have council here, I think this is the time to do it. It is theoretically possible that the mayor could veto the 1.0808, and the council would not have the votes to sustain that veto, which would mean that we would not have adopted a tax classification. If the council were then to adopt another tax classification that was not a single factor, what effect would that have? How long can we continue to go back and forth without reaching agreement? Because it only requires a majority to set the rate, but it requires 2/3 to override the vote. What point does DOR pull the plug on us?
Well, that's a very good question. I'm not sure if I have the answer to that one. But you are left with the procedures that are in place here in terms of what you have to, the stages you've got to go through. And, it's required under the general laws for the council to, in order to send tax bills out, you've got to set a tax classification pursuant to your procedures. So all I can tell you is that hopefully, I know we're getting up to the end of the month, it's now December. It needs to get somehow done by the end of there needs to be a meeting of the minds, basically, between the executive and legislative branches on this issue before the end of the month, so that because you're left with the procedure that you have to follow in terms of, voting on a measure, presenting it to the mayor. The mayor has so many days and coming back. If nothing is ever settled before January, you haven't set a tax classification rate.
May I speak up on this?
Yeah. Councilor Ricketts?
So if the mayor vetoes the 1.0808, it comes back to council, and council doesn't have enough votes to override that veto, then it just stays at no split tax rate for the year.
No, it stays at, we haven't set.
You haven't set the rate.
The rate.
We have-
So,
You have to
so if
revote.
it's vetoed, and that veto can't be overridden, that means the veto stands, and therefore the vote goes back to, we have to have this discussion again. It doesn't go back to a factor of 1.
And it's the same delays, the 10 days,
Correct.
after 10 days before
Correct.
30 days, so we're
If-
running into the end of the year
Correct.
very quickly after that.
Correct. I will have the 29th votes sent tomorrow morning to the mayor's office. Because we have them in the office. Now that we have clarity, we can send them out.
Do your 10
so that
days start tomorrow?
when everybody leaves here tonight, we will all know where we are at and what's going on. Further discussion, Councilman?
I move that the order number fiscal year 18-038, that it be ordered that the Greenfield Town Council amends the code of the Town of Greenfield by amending Chapter 30, Mayor, Section 30-2, Compensation, as attached hereto, as Exhibit A, and further amends the index of the code, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code and the Town of Greenfield previously voted by the Town Council on November 19th, 2003, and vetoed by the mayor on December 5th, 2003, and hereby approved. I would ask unanimous consent that those dates be amended to 2017. I don't think this happened in 2003.
Any objection to the dates being entered in correctly? Seeing none, discussion? Oh, is there a second?
Was it second?
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion.
So this is just on the veto, this is not to make an amendment on it at all, correct?
This is on the veto, so this order has been vetoed. It's just like the last 3, so if we vote yes on this motion, we are sustaining his veto. If we vote no, we are overriding his veto. I get that right? No, that was backwards.
Yes to
Backwards.
veto and
Yes
no
to-
to keep it.
I got it backwards.
Okay,
There's a lot of vetoes.
Point of
Councilor.
information, is hereby approved. That language, as I understand it, means that we are overriding the veto, just as every other motion has been to override a veto. So a yes vote is to override the veto and put the new ordinance in place. A no vote is to sustain the veto and go back to our previous ordinance. And my understanding is that by giving a no vote, that means if the veto is sustained, that means the measure has been rejected by the council and cannot be taken up under our rules of procedure again for 9 months unless 2/3 of the council votes to suspend the rules of procedure.
Does everyone understand that? Council Maloney?
I understand that, but I guess what I don't understand is like the implications of that. If this can't come up, I mean, we're seeing here that this is already budgeted in a certain way. If we're saying that can't play out the way that the budget currently calls for, what does that mean?
Councilor Master?
My understanding is if we vote yes, we go back to the previous ordinance, the mayor's salary is paid under that ordinance. Any additional appropriation which is not used is otherwise available for intra-departmental transfers, interdepartmental transfers with approval of the council, or ends up getting certified to free cash. If we vote, that's if we vote yes. If we vote no, this ordinance stands as is for this year, and to the extent that we appropriated above this ordinance, the same process takes place.
Further discussion? So seeing nothing, a yes vote, I got it backwards last time, so just make sure I get it right. A yes vote is to override the veto. If we override the veto, this ordinance stands. If we do not override the veto, it goes back to what we previously had, and in 9 months, absent change of or suspension of the rules, it could be taken up by the council again for another vote under the council. Does everyone understand? All right, all those in favor? Opposed?
No.
Okay. That's unanimous. Abstentions? It's unanimous. Okay, so just to, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to make sure everyone understands. I think that what we did is we are, the ordinance that previously existed now stands for Greenfield.
Yep. So, to recap the tax classification issue. The vote of November 15th to split the rate to 1.5 is gone. The veto the veto stands, and that is off the table. The vote of no residential exemption the veto was overridden, therefore that is in force. The vote for a small business exemption was sustained, the veto was sustained, therefore that is no longer on the table. So where we are at currently, going forward, the votes of the 29th, the two votes of the 29th for a split rate of 1.0808 and the vote of the council for no small business exemption will be sent to the mayor's office first thing tomorrow morning. The mayor then has 10 days to act on those votes. The mayor has the choice to veto them, accept them, or do nothing, which is an acceptance. If they are vetoed, after 10, likely the 28th would be the, I believe, 10 days from tomorrow is, I just want to make sure, so that, I want to tell everyone so that they know when they can actually be dealt with. So,
It's the 20th, if it's business days.
is it business days or 10 days?
It's calendar. It's calendar.
Calendar days, so
Leave it at the 20th.
they will go to the mayor's tomorrow, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He has until Saturday the 16th to veto. At which point, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We can consider that, we could take the vetoes up the 27th or later. So therefore, they would be placed on the 28th, if there are vetoes, they will be placed on the 28th meeting agenda.
I believe the charter says that if it falls on a Saturday, it
Still
would go
Monday.
to the following Monday.
That's right.
So then it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that'd be the 29th then?
Yes.
Well, we'll figure it out.
Point of parliamentary inquiry,
Councilor Mass?
Mr. President. Is it possible for the council president, working with the clerk unilaterally, if the mayor's to take swifter action than waiting his full 10 days? And there are more than 10, there are 10 or more days between the date that he returns that veto to the clerk and the 20th, that this be placed on the agenda for the regular council meeting on the 20th? If that is, I'd ask that you be able to do that.
I'm open to that. So it all depends on when the veto, if there's a veto, when it's received.
Thank you.
But if it is received and procedurally we are able to put it on the 20th, it will be put on the 20th, if that happens. Anything further for clarification on where, I just want everybody, including the media present, to understand, and the public that's present, to understand where we are at this point. I don't typically do this, but is there any further questions of clarity from anyone in the public or the town employees? Yes,
I would like to clarify one thing.
okay.
I think the public is under the assumption that the bills will not go out until May. That is not true. As soon as we have this vote and finalized, and it goes to DOR, and they certify our tax rate, even if we can't get them out by January 1, we can get them out soon thereafter. They are not due until May 1st. But I know there are a lot of people who are already asking, like, I want my bill because they use it for their taxes for this coming year. So I just want the public to know that the bills will go out as soon as we can get them out. And
That's,
they can pay them, and we'd be happy for them to pay them.
okay. I'll be right back to you, just,
Yes.
Also for clarity, just to make sure we know, if the mayor chooses not to veto, and in fact signs the vote of the council, the 1.0808, that can be immediately sent to DOR and tax bills can immediately be sent out upon the certification, is that correct?
correct.
Yes.
Yes, Jane?
I have a question about the dates.
Okay.
Okay, so if the bills did not go out on time, how about appeals for an abatement? Because they, although the change must, we got caught in that this year. I'm speaking on behalf of my neighborhood, which although there are 5,800, personal properties that pay for the residential tax rate, our neighborhood of 21 buildings pays 1%. So we usually appeal for abatements, which if you don't have a tax bill, you first have to appeal to the town, and then you cannot go to the state about whether or not you were denied
Right.
unless you have actually applied for your abatement, and we always apply.
30 days, once the bills are out, to apply for.
Right, but the state
actual
law
ones.
is different than the town law, and I ran into that. We got denied being appealed to the state this year
Because of the timing.
because of the timing. So it doesn't matter what
I
it
think we
does.
should be giving legal advice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just telling you the
Yeah.
state law, so.
I will just, do you have an answer to that question that you?
Not off the top of
Not-
my head, because I know what Virginia's saying is true. I think it's 30 days after the mailing of the actual tax bill.
Right.
Normally, those tax bills go out the last week of December, so you only have till February 1st.
So that's the town's regulation? Or- Because
No,
I,
that is
No,
the
that's by
rule.
state. We have to follow the state on the appeal process.
Yeah.
okay, so
It's 30 days once the actual bills are.
I think it's I'm giving a little latitude because I think it's actually an important question
It's a
that
very
we,
important
that we talk about,
It is.
so if, everyone's okay with it, I'm gonna do it anyway, but.
It definitely is the Massachusetts general law that if you have not applied for your abatement by January 31st of 2018, you can never appeal it to the state. I know that for a fact.
For that year.
Happened to-
For that year.
Mhm.
If the bills are mailed timely though, I think,
We'll double check.
I'll look at it tomorrow and I'll call the state if I have to.
We'll get clarification.
I would like to have clarification on that
Me too.
as soon as we possibly can, that if we can get it to the clerk's office, then I can certainly get it to you, Jimmy, and make sure that you have
Thank you for bringing that up.
the information that you're looking for. Anything further? Seeing nothing, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned at 7:06.
The ball's in your court.
All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.